Hello everyone and welcome to Rewind, the retro video game show coming to you live every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on the AWS for Games channels on YouTube today and Twitch next time. You know, sometimes you go away for a break, you come back in, your entire workflow is kind of butchered or something isn't working exactly right. Well, between having a little holiday cold, coming back in and having a hectic start to the year, unfortunately, I was unable to go ahead and get everything back up and working perfectly as I normally do. So next week, we'll go ahead and make sure that we're streaming to Twitch as well. So thank you for joining me here on YouTube on the AWS for Games channel. And, you know, once again, as I mentioned, every time we start these, I know that you're asked this on just about every video on YouTube and Twitch, but please go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and alert buttons so you know when we go live every week. And this really helps the channel. So if you like the content that we're making, please hit those buttons and thanks. And I would be remiss if I didn't say Happy New Year and welcome to 2024. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that we're here. It's going to be an unbelievable year. We have so many plans in place for all amazing new content on the AWS for Games channels. They're going to be focusing on AWS partners and how to go ahead and build your games on AWS technologies, more game industry legends, games industry futurists, a new podcast series that we're starting, more episodes of Rewind, a ton of stuff coming your way. And so we are going to kick it off actually with a light episode this week. Given the announcement that Blue Scuti has gone ahead, this 13-year-old from, I believe, Oklahoma, who has only been playing competitive Tetris for the past 3 years, has made it to the Tetris kill screen. I bet you didn't know there was a Tetris kill screen. I didn't, but he let the entire world know by getting there first. This is something that has not been done in the 37 years that Tetris has actually been out in the world, with more than 200 million copies of Tetris sold across all kinds of platforms, not to mention all the other copies that are on systems all over the place. Nobody has done this. He absolutely amazing. So he basically got to the kill screen, got the game to freeze, and was the first person to actually do it. It's only been seen once before, I believe, and it was done through an AI-assisted program. So he bested the best AI assistants that we have to do this. He's bested every professional Tetris player, and I could not be happier for that young man. So if you happen to see this, Blue Scuti, congratulations, buddy. We are applauding you and throwing up all the air horns and a bunch of cheers for you as well. Fantastic, fantastic achievement. And again, I could not be happier for him. So on this episode of Rewind, we're just going to go ahead and kick back and play some Tetris. And what I thought I'd do is go back and play through the versions of Tetris that I loved, right? So there's so many different kinds out there and so many different versions and types and iterations of Tetris. But we're going to go ahead and explore some of my favorites. So with that, why don't we head on over to the 8-bit living room and check it out. Oh, here we are in the 8-bit living room, and it is snowing. Yeah, still snowing. It's always snowing in the wintertime here in the 8-bit living room. Isn't that right? Yes, that is right. And it turns out we're also have a huge storm heading here to the East Coast this weekend. So there will be real snow in my future, which is great. Can't wait. I grew up in the Northeast. Love the snow. So anyway, all right. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So, yeah. So I thought what we'd first do is go ahead and play an emulate. So these are, of course, all be done in emulation. It's hard to go ahead and kind of, play these things, with live systems under a camera and make sure that they're staying in focus and all these other things. These are all my games as well on all the systems that I have. Way too many copies of Tetris, including the famed Tengen Tetris. And we're going to talk about that as well. But what I thought we would do is start off with the original version of Tetris, which the Tetris company put together for the launch of the Tetris movie, right? Starring Taron Egerton, which tells the story of Hank Rogers and Alexei Pajitnov and how Tetris came to the world. This episode of Games Industry Legends. So make sure you go ahead and check out the AWS for Games channels, and you can see not only the interview with Hank, but many other game industry legends as well. And I also had the opportunity to sit down with Alexei Pajitnov, Hank Rogers, and Maya Rogers, who is the daughter of Hank Rogers and is the CEO of the Tetris company, at the GameSpeed Summit Next last October. There aren't very many people that I meet in the industry anymore that I kind of get tongue-tied around. Alexei was one of them. So absolutely awesome. Had the chance to meet them out for drinks in the evening and talked about what it was like back in that era when he created Tetris and when he met Hank and how it all came together and how true the movie was, which was pretty darn accurate. So what we're going to play is the emulated version of the original Tetris game that Alexei made. Now, it's not actually the original one. It's simulating it, but this is what it looked like. So I'll read you the copy from the site here. It's to celebrate the launch of Tetris, the new Apple original film on Apple TV Plus. We've released a special edition of the Tetris game on Tetris.com. The Tetris game was created by Alexei Pajitnov in 1984 on an Electronica 60 computer. Due to the limitations of the device at the time, there weren't graphic capabilities, so Alexei designed the game using square brackets. This version of the game pays tribute to his original creation and uses classic game settings. Now you can experience what it was like to play the very first version of Tetris. And you can go to tetris.com/Tetris-60 to play this as well. So here we go. So obviously, if it didn't have graphics, it didn't have audio as well. But they added that, of course, here for the effect. But this is what you would be playing in the Elog Mathematical Institute with Alexei's original creation. This is what Tetris originally looked like. Now, my understanding is that the version of Tetris, when Alexei first created it, the lines wouldn't disappear on the screen. So you basically had to fill in all the blocks until they got to the top, and then that was it. Then the game was over. So it was working through that design with Hank that went ahead and made it into the Tetris that we know and love today, and that's what we're playing here. But this was all, again, character-based, or I don't even know if it was ASCII 2, but this is what we would consider to be ASCII 2 graphics, back in the dawn of game development. And a lot of games in that era were programmed using just, these basic characters. These were very simple systems at the time. Still simple today, not just at the time. And the thing about Tetris was Alexei wanted to go and create a puzzle game that would go ahead and kind of hold the interest of the other mathematicians, the people that he worked with. And so this is what he created. And as the story goes in the movie, the name Tetris is derived from I think it's Tetramos or it's a terrible pronunciation with that, but it's basically tetra and tennis is where it comes from. And that is how we get the name Tetris. And so this is what it would have looked like if you were playing on an Electronica 60 computer back in 1984. If you were a co-worker of Alexei's over there in Russia, this is what you would have been playing. And so I love the fact that they went ahead and created this version so you could go ahead and play along with it and kind of experience Alexei's original creation. And it was from this, elegant, graphically simple game that created the phenomenon that is Tetris and kind of has enthralled, people for, again, 34 years or so. Pretty amazing, right? Pretty astonishing. And the fact that Blue Scuti went ahead and got to the kill screen, basically the end of Tetris, before anybody else could. And only 13 years of age and only playing competitive Tetris for 2 years, I think, or 3 years. Just an extraordinary feat. What a wonderful, what a wonderful thing for him to have achieved. And what was really bittersweet about his win is that he had dedicated the win to his father, who had passed away this December. So, it is just, just a wonderful story to start off 2024 with. And I'm sure you're seeing news reports and stuff all over the place about this. It hit the morning brew, right, which is a staple in our house in terms of getting our daily information early in the morning. So good. So good. Anyway, so this was the original version of Tetris, or I should say, this is what the original version of Tetris would have sort of looked like if you were playing back on those original machines when it was first invented. Now, this isn't one of my favorite versions, but it's become one that I can completely appreciate because, again, it just demonstrates the core gameplay, the core mechanics, and demonstrates how elegant a design he actually created. Just absolutely lovely. So go ahead and head on over to tetris.com/Tetris-E60 to go ahead and play this. Don't do it right now unless you pop it up in another browser window. Hang here with me because we're going to go ahead and play through some more versions of Tetris. So I said I was going to start firing up the versions that I loved, the ones that kind of most resonated with me, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. But, that means we need to start with the granddaddy of all of them, right? The one that really went ahead and solidified Tetris in the minds of game players everywhere, right? And that is the original Game Boy version of the game. If you've seen the movie, let me know in the chat. If there's a version of Tetris that you like, let me know what that is as well. And if I have it here, we'll go ahead and fire it up and we'll go ahead and play. So let me go ahead and get rid of our TV right here. And let's pull up our handheld. All right. And so here we go, playing the original version of Tetris. I'm going to shut up this music here so we can hear this. Now, I'm actually going to wind up turning down the music on the game because I don't know, about copyright strikes and things like that for the soundtrack. So rather than risk that, we'll just put on some music in the background and we'll go ahead and drop this down. Let's see. Who do we have here in our chat room? Let me go ahead and pop out this chat so I can see people's full names. Miss L, hey, how are you? You started with the Game Boy version too? Yep, so many of us did. And this was the game that really just went ahead and rocketed not only Tetris into the zeitgeist, but the Game Boy as well, right? And most people that got this, if you had parents if you were younger at the time that this was released and you brought this in the home, your parents would typically go ahead and take the game from you because this really resonated strongly with parents, with adults, right? I remember, in fact, let's see, when the original version of Tetris was released, I was in my late teens, and I remember one morning I lived in the basement of our house, and I remember one morning I heard this commotion going on outside, in kind of the sitting area of the basement. And I came outside, and my stepmother and my father were both sitting on the couch, and they were fighting over the Tetris over the NES controllers so you could play Tetris first. So there were arguments going on about who was going to be able to go ahead and get a hold of the controller and play Tetris first. It was a thing, and it still is today. It's a game that sticks with you. I consider this to be a forever game. It's the type of game that doesn't matter how long you've played it for. It doesn't matter the last time you played it. It is a game you can constantly go back to over and over and over again, and it's still just as much of a delight when you're playing it for the 10,000th time or the first time. In fact, I did find out that an AWS colleague has said that they've never played Tetris before. And so I urge them to go ahead and get a copy of Tetris and see what they've been missing out on. It's this is one of the games I go back to consistently across a variety of systems in my house because it's Tetris, man. It's freaking awesome. Now, the thing about Blue Scuti going ahead and getting to the kill screen in Tetris also made my highest score seem pathetically weak. And I was walking around with like a 640 or 650,000 point score as my best score ever, just thinking, all right, that was pretty good. I was in the flow, and no. I mean, he completely trounced that. It's quite amateur hour, but it doesn't take away my joy or love of the game. So this was the original version of Tetris. And as you'll recall, if you see the movie, if you read any books about the history of Tetris, everything from Game Over, Press Start to Continue by David Sheff with additions by Andy Eddy. Shout out to Andy. You'll know that, Nintendo was originally going to pack in a Mario game with the Game Boy. And Hank Rogers and Alexei convinced Nintendo to pack in Tetris. And they said, look, if you want to go ahead and just sell it to kids, go ahead and do so. But if you want to sell it to everybody, pack in Tetris with it. And they took that advice, and that's what they did. And the rest is history. Incredible history. And a history that once again was made just the other day by Blue Scuti over there in Oklahoma. My goodness, what a great accomplishment. So this was the original Game Boy. It was also, or original version of Tetris on the Game Boy. This was also, it's a little easier to see here than it did when you were playing it on this non-backlit screen on the original Game Boy. So this is, when we talk about which games are the purest, this is probably the purest version of a modern or graphical Tetris, because there's no tumbling blocks across lines after they've been seeded. You really can't move as fluidly as you do in some of the later games. And actually, the best version of Tetris, I believe, is the one I'm going to be playing next. But this is the closest to the original design of Alexei's original game. When I met him, as I said, in October, I mentioned to him which version of Tetris was my favorite, and he said, there's so many of them, I lose track of them, so I don't know all of them. I know the one that I made, and that's the one I like. And I was like, I agree. So I'm not going to argue with the master, right? So that was just a wonderful exchange, and I'll make sure that I pop up a picture on LinkedIn of my visit with Alexei and Hank and Maya. So this was the original Tetris for the Game Boy. Yep, if you grew up with the Game Boy, you know exactly what this is. All right, let's go ahead and move on to, again, what I believe is the best version of Tetris in the portable format, and it is Tetris DX. Oh, Chris Blackwell. Hey, buddy, how are you? Yay, Chris is here in the house. I got to work with Alexei on Elfish when I was at Maxis. All the Animatech people were so great to work with, super crazy smart. Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine what that was like, being back there and just being at Maxis, for goodness sake, Really amazing. Yeah, yep. Hey, buddy. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. All right. This one is my absolute, again, favorite. And the reason is because it really tracks close to the original version, but you have some horizontal movement that will let you slide pieces in when you play, and it has these awesome little endings. So I'll go ahead and play through a full loop here so we can see what ending we're going to get to. And that was the little treat that you got at the end of a marathon game of Tetris DX. Now, if you play Tetris, you know, it's one of these games, it's deceptively simple when you first look at it, right? Because, oh, shoot, okay, I should stop. Well, I can't stop talking, right? Because that's what we're here for, is we're here to discuss Tetris. Now I have to go ahead and deal with that dumb block that I went ahead and dropped down there. But it's deceptively simple when you start to play the game because it's, you know, you have 7 different shapes, you slide them down and they only fit, you know, as they fit, right? But there are different techniques for building up your stacks there to get to a Tetris. So I happen to be an edge builder, so I build at the edges and move inward. I know other players that build from the middle outward. And so what I like to try to do when I didn't completely flub it by dropping an open space right there on the bottom line, which is just death, is I like to go ahead and typically I'll go ahead and keep the right lane open and kind of just build from the right to the left, leaving the right lane completely open for a straight piece. And that way I can go ahead and drop them down and go ahead and grab the Tetris. Of course, the Tetris is when you have 4 lines and you're able to go ahead and remove all 4 lines simultaneously, and then you get maximum points for doing so. Yeah, it's so there's a lot of different techniques to playing the game, and you have to experiment with what works best for you. One of the problems with being an edge builder is when you get to the point where you start having the blocks fall really fast, then you're pushing the blocks constantly to the edges. So if you build from the center up, you only have to move the block from the center point to left or right, so you can actually manipulate it faster. But I could just never get it. Just didn't feel right to me playing it that way. So I'm an edge builder, baby. That's the way I play Tetris. So, all right, let me go ahead and drop a couple. Let's go grab that Tetris there. Boom. And, oh, yeah, the music on this one, too, is really, really good. So if you have a copy of this, definitely dig it back out. Relive some of those Tetris memories. Edgelord. No edgelordiness here. We're nothing but happiness and love and camaraderie and the joy of gaming over here. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome to play. So no, we won't be pushing that edgelord button there. So yeah. So this is Tetris DX for the Game Boy Color. And again, so one of the things you could do, let's see if it's going to let me do it here. So when this drops down, I still have some time to go to manipulate the pieces left to right, which the original version doesn't. Once you drop them, that's it. They're locked into place. So it gives you the ability to go ahead, and especially when you get to the top of the rack, and you have to go ahead and manipulate larger pieces to the edge out of the way of the stack that you've built, you're able to actually do that. In other versions of Tetris, and we're going to go and take a look at that, you can actually tumble the blocks. So once a block drops, you can actually go ahead, if you're fast enough on the buttons, you can go ahead and kind of walk the piece left or right across the screen to fit it where you want to place it. So it's a lot of crazy ass techniques here. The other thing too about Tetris DX is if you play it long enough, you'll start to notice some things. So what'll wind up happening is, for example, one of the things that I notice is I'll get no straight line pieces until, let's see if it happens here, until I block a lane, and then within like 1 or 2 drops, there it is, the straight one appears. So it's, I kind of know, perhaps the way it's written, I don't know this for sure. It's just kind of waiting for you to be in those positions before it delivers you that mercy piece that you can't use because you went ahead and basically closed the lane on that, right? So yeah, but this one is the GOAT. Absolutely. I should have started a harder level so we could go ahead and move more quickly through it, but let me see. All right, let me see. I may have done it to myself though. So, all right, here we go. We're going to drop this one here. We're going to drop that one there. Here. Okay, here. And then here's what I'll do. I will just go ahead and stack these up in the middle. And so we'll get off of this game. And let's see. Did I get anything? Let's see what happens. Did I get anything? We're going to try again. Nope. I didn't get a high enough score. When you do, you get a little rocket that shoots off. And then you can build up to the space shuttle. And you have a little champagne bottle and a cork that goes flying on it. And so those are like the rewards for doing well in Tetris. Favorite version of Tetris, but we have a lot more versions to go through. So let's go ahead and jump on in and take a look at some of these other versions of Tetris. Okay, so the version of Tetris that Blue Scuti went ahead and made the kill screen emerge on was the original NES version of the game, and that one was made by Nintendo. But there was another version for the NES that came out by a company called Tengen. If any of you know who Tengen is, if you don't, well, you're going to find out. So let's get our TV back over here. So Tengen was basically a company that was formed by Atari, and back in the day, Atari, here, let me go ahead and get this started here first. Let's make that silent. Okay. So back in the day, Atari wanted to go ahead and publish games for the NES, but they didn't want to pay the licensing fee that all, game developers paid to Nintendo. And Nintendo did this out of necessity to go ahead and make sure that we didn't suffer the same type of game industry crash that we had suffered back in 1982 and 83, because there was a glut of content that was in the marketplace and consumers couldn't tell what was a good game or what was a bad game, because at that point in the original Atari VCS's life cycle, you had all sorts of companies making all sorts of garbage games and just using them as a way to prop up their properties or to make a quick buck. And so consumers were constantly getting burned. That's why you have a Nintendo seal of quality, because Nintendo said, look, in order to make sure we have a healthy environment for everybody, we're going to limit the number of games that can be made for the platform from any individual publisher. They have to go through our testing and quality control and all that stuff. And then we could go and put them into market. And Nintendo would manufacture the cartridges, and you'd pay a licensing fee and all those things. Atari didn't want to pay for those things. So what they had done was they went to the U.S. Patent Office and were able to go ahead and get a look at the patent for their lockout chip, which is basically an encryption chip. That there was a chip in the cartridge, an NES cartridge, and it was a chip inside of the NES. And when you would go and plug it in, they would handshake with each other. And that way you would know that you were playing an authorized Nintendo game. So they basically reverse engineered this off of the patent submissions and created their own version and got it into market. Nintendo, of course, took Atari to court, and the ruling came down in Nintendo's favor, and so they had to pull this game off the market. I happen to have a copy of this. It was out there for a very limited period of time, and if you can find one pristine, brand new in box, it's hundreds, if not, over $1,000 to get your hands on it, right? And this is what the version of Atari Tetris looked like, or Tengen Tetris, I should say. Tengen also had a bunch of other games for the NES that they did license and pay the licensing fees and put out there. They had Gauntlet, which was a really technical marvel because for all intent and purposes, the NES should not have been able to handle Gauntlet. I think I talked about it in another episode of Rewind, but basically what they did was if you play the Tengen version of Gauntlet, you notice that your character moves very fluidly around the playfield. But all of the enemies do not. They move basically in tiles. So it's very kind of like a staccato kind of movement, very jerky movement. And that's because what they would do is the NES couldn't handle that many sprites that Gauntlet required to be on the screen. So what they would do is they would keep track of where all of the enemies were supposed to be, and then they would just repaint the entire background with all of the enemies where they were. And so it gave the illusion that they were moving all of these these sprites individually when they were not. They would just update the position, go ahead and repaint the background, and keep doing that over and over again. So it was a trick, but it worked. And that is the amazing thing about game development, is it only has to be right for the point of view of the player, right? We're able to go ahead sometimes, right, and trick you into believing the system is doing things that it really isn't doing through just masterful programming, real innovation, real artistic talent. And so that's what they did. And they had Afterburner on this as well, which was also really good conversion for the NES. So this is what the illegal, right, copy of Tetris looked like. Again, you know, it was sold in market. It was fine. You could find a copy on eBay. Go ahead and grab one. I have mine safely ensconced in my my archive at home. So, Chris, sometimes I think Atari is primarily responsible for the DMCA. Perhaps that was the Wild West of game development, for sure, right? For sure back then. But anyway, so this was the Tengen version of Tetris. Really good game. Really good gameplay. You had two players, and you're playing against each other, and I believe you would throw blocks back and forth. Really, really cool. But let's go ahead and take a look at the actual version that Blue Scuti went ahead and used when he brought up that kill screen. So let's see. I believe that one is right here. So here we go. Electrotechnica Elorg. Tetris licensed to Nintendo, 1989. This is the screen that you remember when you see Tetris in a movie, or you think back to when you were a kid. This is what it looked like. Miss L, I remember seeing a similar version of this in arcade form. You are absolutely correct. That version did make it into the arcade. I was going to actually try to get the arcade version up here and running for us to go ahead and play through. Just didn't have time to get all of these different versions together for this episode. But yes, it was in the arcade. You could play as two players there. And so yeah, so again, no music here. We're just going to listen to the dulcet tones of this 8-bit music here from Waterflame, who has graciously allowed me to use his music here on Rewind and all the other programming that we do here on the AWS for Games channel. So again, huge shout out to Waterflame. Thank you, buddy. So this is the version of Tetris that Blue Scuti was playing when he hit that kill screen. The coolest thing was, if you go and take a look at the news articles about it, he wasn't just playing it on the original hardware and everything. He was playing it on a CRT. Like, the kid was doing it right. He got it completely right. You know, you want to play these games on a CRT because that's what they were designed for, if you can. Now, you know, with emulation and, Nintendo re-releasing, games and stuff like that, you can approximate that. But man, nothing feels like snapping a cartridge in to one of those machines, going and firing up that CRT. You kind of watch it breathe to life, and you get this glow. And especially if you're playing in the dark, you just get that glow from a CRT. Man, there is nothing like it. It's when you're playing, it really is amazing. Chris says, I'm going to pause here. One of the things that was new to me watching the GameScat video was the evolution of using the controller. I still don't understand how the technique of scratching the back of the controller works. Yes. So what Chris Blackwell here. Thanks, buddy, for that. Yay, Chris Blackwell here. I'll grab another chime there for you. So basically, what he was doing. Of course, this is a knockoff USB, AliExpress sort of controller. But basically, the NES pad would only have, your cross controls, your selected start buttons, and then A and B. And so what he would do is he would lay the controller basically on his lap, and then by tapping the back of the controller where he needed to, or sliding his hand and tapping it down, he's basically activating the buttons here. But he doesn't have to have them depressed all the way for them to register them making connection. The problem that we have, right, is that we have a lot of fine-grained movement in our fingers and in our extremities to move laterally. But when it comes to pressing down on things, we have a really difficult time doing that. So in competitive mode, try to go ahead and just half press the controller. You really won't be able to do it. But flipping the controller over onto the back and just kind of rippling their hand across it or tapping on the back of it depresses the button enough to make the connection move it, and you can basically hit those buttons in succession a whole lot faster using that technique. It is crazy. It is crazy playing that way. I've tried it before. It is a known technique for these types of games. I can't do it, right? So I'm going to be stuck at that 600,000 beautiful score forever, because there's no way I'm going after a kill screen, flipping the controller around. But that's the technique, and that's how they use it. So literally, it is basically taking into account the compromise that we have with our own physicality and using the control in such a unique way to create an advantage without cheating, without using any other sort of helpers, right? It's amazing. Really amazing. So ingenious. But this is the version of Tetris that you remember playing on your NES. Lovely game. This is the game that my parents were fighting over back in the day, and which was also a really weird thing for, the kid to basically come out of his bedroom and go, "Hey, keep it down. Stop playing those games. I'm trying to get some sleep here," right? So, very odd. In fact, I will share one other story about my parents and the Nintendo Wii. I remember one evening, my wife and I, we had gotten the kids to bed and had time to watch some TV or what have you, and made our way to bed probably at like 11 o'clock at night or something. And I get a call. It's like on a Wednesday. This is years ago. And it's from my parents. I'm like, "Oh, is everything okay? What's going on?" And they said, no, everything is fine. We're trying to get to the 2-player mode on this game on the Wii, but we can't seem to get to it. We have some people over. How do we do that? And I was like, what? I thought something had happened. She said, no, everything is fine, but we're just trying to figure out how to go ahead and get this game started. I said, but that's a single-player game. They're like, "Okay, bye, love you," and just hung up the phone. So my parents were calling me after 11 at night on a Wednesday to figure out how to go ahead and get a game started for them and their buddies at home, right? That is upside down world. So anyway, there we go. Original Tetris on the NES. All right, let's go ahead and switch back. Let me see, where are we now? We're at, we're only at just about 40 minutes past the hour. Let's see if we have another one here to take a look at. Oh, yeah, let's go play this one. Any of you ever own a Virtual Boy? I sure did. I own 2, in fact. That sounds like, what's his name from The Lion King? Rowan Atkinson's character, the bird. Right? So yeah. Oh, here you go, Chris. I love that story. I always love families thinking we are free tech support. Chris, we are free tech support. That is what we do. Right? And it doesn't matter age, time, or when you last saw them. That is your job, to fix all of these problems. And I love the other ones. Well, isn't there just a button I can press and fixes it? No, there's no magic button to press that fixes it. If there was, I would have told you that over the phone. All right, so the Virtual Boy. If anyone has ever had one of these, I feel your pain. And yeah, like I said, I had two of them at two different times. And what I remember about playing on the Virtual Boy was, everything was always in the color red, right? It was varying degrees of redness. The way this worked, for those of you that don't know how the Virtual Boy actually worked, pretty awesome for the time. What it would do is, so this goes all the way back. All right, let's get a bit of the Wayback Machine happening here. So there was a game machine in the early 1980s called the Adventure Vision. I had one of those as well, on a clearance. I think it was like $15 on a clearance at like one of these large discounters in New York where I grew up. And there were only 4 games released for it. It was like Turtles, I think Choplifter, Defender, and one other one. And so basically what would happen is inside this Adventure Vision, it looked like a little mini arcade machine with a screen. And this is, again, really early 80s. So how the hell is that happening, right? Chris said Virtual Boy was too rich for his blood. Power Glove was the craziest thing I had. Yes, they were. That was crazy and terrible. And that's for another episode. But so what the Adventure Vision would do is it had a mirror inside that would spin at 30 revolutions, right, per second, which would basically a mirror on the front and back. So it would basically give you 15 frames a second on that you could see. And then it had an LED bar that was all red on the side of the machine. And the blinking of the LEDs was synchronized to the spinning of that mirror. So it would create, because of persistence of vision, it would create a grid pattern that you'd be able to then use to paint graphics on the screen. And you were playing video games on the spinning mirror with these lights. There's actually an emulator for the Adventure Vision that you can go download and actually see what that looked like. And they even simulated, because of the shoddy nature of the system, the mirror would constantly wobble. So all the pixels would kind of wobble out of alignment. Imagine if you were, playing a game, I don't know, like Grand Theft Auto, and your character's made out of voxels that were constantly shifting a little bit out of position. That's basically what the graphics looked like on the Adventure Vision. Fast forward to the late 1980s, early 90s, and the Virtual Boy comes out. And the Virtual Boy is basically doing the same thing. They had 2 spinning mirrors inside, one for each eye. They had an LED bar on the side that would light up and create this matrix and create these graphics. And that's why it was really only a single color. They could have done multicolor, but that was extremely expensive at the time. And so this is where it, it would also chew through batteries, because you're spinning motors, right, the entire time, which is the biggest power draw that you can have there. Oh, this is why you come. I still learn things. I've never heard of the Adventures. Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you there. So, this game machine was made by Gunpei Yokoi, who was the creator of the Ultra Hand, which was the first toy that Nintendo really manufactured. It was a hand like on a spring that you would push. He was also the inventor of a whole bunch of other things, including the Game Boy. And then he went ahead and created the Virtual Boy. When the Virtual Boy failed in market, he eventually left Nintendo and he went over to, I believe it was Bandai, and created the Wonder Swan and the Wonder Swan Color, which only existed in Japan, but phenomenal little system, ran on a single AA battery, huge library of content, including Final Fantasy games, really fantastic. But this was Tetris on the Virtual Boy. It was only released in Japan. And here we go. We're going to go ahead and jump in, and I will spare you from having to go ahead and have basically these red LEDs plastered to your face. What I do remember about, oh, look at that. Okay, so you'll notice that when I dropped that one piece to the bottom, I hadn't locked it into position, so I was able to move it laterally. And this is where, the newer versions of Tetris allow for, not, I wouldn't say more advanced, it just allowed for more dynamic gameplay, because you can literally get a piece down into a valley that is shaped by the blocks and then move it into position when you shouldn't have been able to, right? You can like kind of drop the piece down and then flip it as it's gone through. So that way you can move it to another position, then flip it back up while it's still dropping. So you can basically kind of snake it through blocks. Really advanced techniques. I can do that to a certain extent, but not at higher levels. Anyway, so this was Tetris on the Virtual Boy. And now you can imagine you've got these two rotating mirrors, one for each eye, offset from each other a little bit. And so all of this looked 3D, right? That's why you have the star field, kind of coming at you to give that illusion of depth. And you would see the 3D effect there. You don't get to see it here, but again, that's the price we pay for being able to even just experience and talk about the importance of Tetris and all of its incarnations in game history. So this was the Virtual Boy version of Tetris. Not too much. It's not so much a looker, but we appreciate it for what it did and for what it was trying to do. Oh, how long could you actually use the Virtual Boy? It seems like it might hurt your eyes after a bit. I've never tried one, I'm ashamed to say. So what I will tell you is the Virtual Boy, when you start up the games, it asks you if you want to put the automatic pause on each game. And it stops you like after 15 minutes and says, you should probably take a break. Here's what I do remember about this. The Virtual Boy sat on a stand that you put on a table and you leaned your face into it, and that's how you kind of played it. You had this controller that had like two arms off the back, kind of like a GameCube controller, and then triggers on the top, and everything was all wired together. So it wasn't really portable. You still had to put it on a table. But the best way to play it was you would just lay down and just rest it on your face. And what I remember doing, and my wife, we were young married couple of times. My wife's like, "Oh my God, you're ridiculous." She walks into the bedroom and I'm just lying there in bed with this Virtual Boy just resting on my face. And I was playing it for a while. And I got up and I took the Virtual Boy off and the lights were out, but it was like having night vision because the rods in your eyes were so activated by just the red that it was filtering out that light. So basically you were looking at blue light, and I was like, what is going on here? Headache and everything else. I went into the bathroom and turned on the light, and I was like, it was literally, wearing night vision goggles and then turning the damn lights on. But yeah, so that was Tetris on the Virtual Boy. Interesting attempt at technology that was way too soon, but yeah, there you go. All right, let's go ahead and slide into, let's try maybe one or two more here. Actually, we're going to try, you know what? We're going to switch now off this to a different version of Tetris. I definitely want to go ahead and try this because this is the modern version of Tetris. And if you have access to Steam, you have access to a Steam Deck and all those other sorts of things, or on the PlayStation, I believe it's also it's not, I know it's for the Oculus as well. I believe it's also for the Xbox. It is Tetris Effect connected. So let's go ahead and fire up Tetris Effect. Now, this is one that I know I will be able to go ahead and listen to its music, and that's important because this game is just astonishingly beautiful. Really, even when I first saw it, I was just like, okay, Tetris in VR, like we tried that on the Virtual Boy. How good is that really going to be? Oh my gosh. It is just, well, you'll see. I'm going to crank this up. Let me know if you can hear the audio in the chat there. And yeah, we'll go ahead and jump right into journey mode. Now, what I love about this version of the game is not just its setting and the graphics and everything else, but what they do is in each level, they go ahead and they change up. Thank you, Chris. They change up the graphics for each for the pieces, and so you get used to kind of seeing the blocks together. And you don't start to see them as the individual blocks. You see them as a single solid piece. But there are times, there's one level where they all turn into gears. And so there's space in between them. And it becomes more difficult to kind of figure out exactly where they are in the lane before you go ahead and drop them. So it adds another level of complexity, and you're constantly changing up your strategy to play. So let me see. Let's jump in here. All right, and I haven't tested on this controller, so okay, good. All right, so and it's gonna do that. I knew it. Hold on, let me see if I can. There we go. Okay. Now, what I love about this game too, it kind of reminds you a little bit of a game called Rez, one of my favorite games of all time. It's definitely in my top 20. Rez has a soundtrack that builds as you play the game, right? So you don't hear all you don't hear the entire music track or anything. Once again, it builds as you go ahead and play. So let me see if I can at least clear out some of the lines here. And if I can't get to another level quickly, then I'll go ahead and pause it and show you what some of the other levels. I don't know about you, if you play Tetris like I play Tetris. Yeah, Rez, phenomenal. On the Dreamcast, Rez on the Dreamcast, as well as on the PlayStation and the VR and the 360. I've got every version of that damn game because it is just so good, so good. So in different versions of Tetris, they started introducing all these different kind of mechanics that you can use to play. So you can do things like, I'm going to switch the piece out. So you notice that I've now swapped the piece that was in play out for the next piece that was dropping, and now I have it stashed up there in the corner. I mean, I get it, and I know why, why they do that. It adds, another dimension to the gameplay. So do these zones, which we're going to see here in a minute. But I try really not to use them. I just went ahead and grabbed that, or did that to demonstrate, oh my goodness. Shoot. Okay, yeah. When you're playing Tetris, you don't want to be talking. Okay, yeah. So I need to. Okay, you see how let's see if I can do it. Am I going to dance them? Yeah. You can see I can dance the blocks across the screen, but I've completely crapped out on that level. So we're going to go back and try that again. Okay, let's go try that one more time. So I try not to use those gimmicks, but I do admit every once in a while, let's see, you need to finish fighting all the bosses in this game. Yeah, I'm not that far along. Oh my God, I did it again. Not thinking. I just went ahead and picked this one up actually on the Steam sale, which is still, which is still going on right now. I have it on the PlayStation 5, which is where I'd been playing it. But with the Steam Deck, now I can actually take it with me and play it and actually progress and not have to go ahead and be locked to my family room to play the game. Yeah, just such a beautiful game. And there we go. We got dolphins, yo. We got dolphins up in here. What I love about this too, not that, well, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but Hank Rogers, right, the co-founder of the Tetris company, he has a company called Blue Planet, and Blue Planet is focused on ecology and on things that help to save our planet. And so I love the fact that we have themes like that here in Tetris Effect. It is truly beautiful. Now, this version also works on the Oculus, and the great thing about the current update to the Oculus is that you can stream games that are desktop PC only down to the MetaQuest and play that way, which is great, right? Because I have a whole massive catalog of Steam content. Yeah, this controller, man. I know. A craftsman doesn't blame. A bad craftsman blames his tools, right? Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to blame my damn tools here. But yeah, just a lovely, lovely game. And so, it is one of those games too that really exemplifies flow theory. When you start to get into that zone, everything just kind of clicks together, except when I'm talking, and I went ahead and did that and left another gap down there because that is just crap ass Tetris gameplay for you. But yeah, do love it. Do love it. Do love it. Do love it. Let's see. You were thinking about the comments earlier about random piece select and stash gimmicks. And were you thinking about Hatris? Yes. Yes. We had Hatris, Weltris, a whole bunch of different games that came in the Tris series, and a lot of them created by Alexei Pajitnov. If you haven't seen the movie or had read on the history of Tetris, I'm going to go back and play one of the older, or one of the other levels there. Let me go ahead and quit out of that. Some people are like, oh, Alexei, he's probably made all this money, playing, because of how popular Tetris was. He wasn't, he was still in Russia, and it was Hank that basically, worked with him to get him and his family out. And then they founded the company together. And that's when Alexei started to, reap the rewards from his invention. And they mentioned in a interview that was conducted at the GameSpeed Summit by my good buddy Chris Kohler. Shout out to Chris Kohler over there at Digital Eclipse, which is now Atari. Which, yeah, wait, where's my? Do I have my Atari? There we go. There's my Atari. My Atari jingle. He said, I think it was like the first thing Alexei went out and did is bought himself a really nice watch. And so you're thinking, oh yeah, like what? Like a Rolex? He bought this nice Casio watch that he just liked the look of it. And that's where he is. He is a very humble, gentle, soft-spoken guy. And it was an absolute thrill to spend time with him, Hank and Maya, who is just incredible, doing a wonderful job of running the Tetris company and keeping that legacy of her father's, and Alexei's alive, and it was just a real privilege. But look, I thought we'd walk through some of, again, my favorite versions of Tetris. I do work in game preservation. It's super important that we are preserving our history for future generations, because we can get the history right. Most of the people that created the video games industry, well, if not most, enough are still with us today that we can tell the true and accurate history of this incredible industry. This incredible art form that is experienced by 3 billion people the world over, has set in motion the careers of so many people that I admire. And we are just scratching the surface of what we're going to be able to do with video games to better mankind, to create more moments of joy, more moments of empathy, more moments of connection, like just amazing things. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so proud to be here at AWS, because having the largest cloud platform in the world, and these games that depend on access to compute reliably, performant, at scale, cost effectively, is just an extraordinary opportunity to help game developers realize the potential and reach of their art. And so that's why I'm here. And I know, Chris, you know that I kind of talk about that incessantly here at AWS, and I won't stop, right? Part of my job it's not even my job, it's my passion, is to be an advocate for developers, to make sure that we're giving you the things that you need so you can just make more games, make better games. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's just such a joy to get to do this every week with an increasing number of people that join us. Yeah, you know, if there are game systems, if there's game history, if there's stuff you would like to see, make sure you hit me up on LinkedIn and let me know, you know, what those would be. And I'd be happy to go ahead and do episodes on that as well. But this is Tetris Effect. Beautiful, hypnotic, just stunning. Absolutely stunning. Definitely go pick this up if you can, or if you've never played Tetris before, definitely go pick it up. And here's what's cool about this. You can see I'm actually rotating the play field. So if you're playing this in VR, you can actually change the angles on all these things and get to experience the beauty of that game from any angle. Last comments that were up in here. Yeah, the versus modes have the new zone mechanic is actually very competitive. It is very competitive. What the zone mechanic does is the zone mechanic allows you to go ahead and after you have built up your zone meter, you can trigger it, and then all of the lines you complete move to the bottom of the stack. They complete as one unit. You get multiple points or multipliers based on how many you've stacked up in there. So it's another way to go and stack numbers while you're playing. And it is a huge part of the competitive nature of Tetris Effect Connected. You play online around the world with people. Awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. And yeah, Chris, when the game, let's see, Miss L said, when this game came out, I wasn't super interested since it was only single player, but the versus mode and all the other content are so well done that it's worth it. Yes, definitely, Chris. Glad that you went ahead and picked it up. And Chris also shared with us that it's one of the reasons he's been at AWS so long is he really enjoys making the tech to enable great games even more than working on the games themselves. And I agree. I get so much joy every day out of helping my friends who make art for a living to create more art and to help them leverage platforms that bring that art to a massive global audience. So again, truly a privilege. So with that, it brings us right to the end of our episode for the day. Remember, if you the 5th of November, no, it's not the 5th of November. Hey, if you are a video game developer of any size, from AAA to indie, make sure you head on over to aws.amazon.com/GameTech to discover the products, solutions, and services that we offer to help you on your cloud game development journey. And if you're a beginner looking for a clear starting point to help you build a career or learn to produce games in the AWS cloud, we recommend you start with an AWS learning plan. This set of on-demand courses will increase your knowledge of game servers and game analytics and help grow your technical skills to solve real-world game development, compute, and analytics problems. And you can demonstrate your knowledge to the world by earning digital badges. Head on over to aws.training/GameTech to start your AWS for Games learning plan today. And as I said earlier, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Waterflame for allowing us to use his music here on Rewind. Make sure you head on over to his YouTube channel at Waterflame Music to check out his incredible work. And lastly, if you care about preserving the history of video games as much as I do, make sure you head on over to the Video Game History Foundation's website at gamehistory.org. They're doing incredible work to preserve the history of our industry for future generations. And as always, I want to thank you for spending time with me on this Friday afternoon. I hope you have a safe, healthy, happy, and prosperous 2024. We have, as I mentioned before, all new content to get this new year kicked off and started right, and a whole lot more to come in the year ahead. So once again, have a wonderful rest of your day, an awesome weekend, go play some Tetris, and we'll see you next week on Rewind.